That was too big, that microphone. Anyway, hello there. My name is Beth Green, otherwise known as Granny Rocks. And tonight, I am hoping that we have fun. Yes, fun on lighting the way. So, with Beth Green and Friends. So, I'll be bringing on the and Friends shortly. But in the meantime, I want to tell you about the show tonight that I'm going to be talking about, and we are going to be elaborating on. You never know what's going to happen. And it could be a good surprise for a change, right? So, okay. So, I want to start by talking about that. Now, before I do, I want to say that we are broadcasting simultaneously on Facebook and YouTube. And on my public Facebook page, you'll be able to comment and I'll see it. But on my private personal page, you won't. I will not see your comment when we're live, but I can answer later. So, anyway, what do I mean when I say you never know what's going to happen? Well, you want to hear some goofy examples? All right, let's say that uh, you're a woman, you've been married many times, and you're just miserable. And you're over your last divorce. And you go into a bookstore because you want to get a book on why all my marriages have turned out to be unhappy. And while you're in the bookstore, you meet another woman and you start chatting and talking, and 6 months later you're married to her, and you discover, oh my god, I'm lesbian, or at least I could be, either and or both. And so that is something that you didn't expect, you weren't even hoping for, it just happened. And and you discover something new about yourself, and it all works out. Okay, not that you're not miserable in that marriage too, because people are difficult to live with. But when it's the right relationship, somehow you work it out, you get therapy, whatever. So let's see. And I want you to be thinking about examples while I'm talking away about this topic, because we all know, and I really should have started here. We all know what it's like to have bad things happen unexpectedly. For example, every one of us has seen a movie where there's a man and a woman and their two children, and they're in a car and they're driving to the country for a wonderful vacation, and suddenly a deer shows up in the middle of the road in the middle of the night, and they slam the brakes, and the car is out of control, and everybody's dead except for her or for him or one of the children or whatever. Okay. So, haven't we seen that movie many times? Well, I have, or the movie or series or whatever. And so we have it embedded in our mind that terrible things can happen at any time. And in fact, they do. Suddenly, you start having stomach cramps and you find out you have cancer. Or you discover that your child is a drug addict, or the administration of your government is not as good as it could be. And it's like, oh my God, this is worse than I ever thought. Okay, so all of these terrible things can happen. But what we don't remember is that great things can happen too. I just gave you an example of the woman who had the miserable marriages, who went into a bookstore and met another woman, and uh, she lived happily ever after and discovered that she really preferred relationships with women. Unexpected. Give you another example of something unexpected. Pope Leo. How many people expected that the Pope after Francis was going to be just as good or better in some ways, or not at least turn around and go all the way back to the beginning of time? Well, so that's the way it seems to be. And there's a lot of people who are very surprised by Pope Leo. Isn't that a pleasant surprise in general, generally speaking? He seems to be a really good guy. So, and we need people like that, lots of people like that. So, what else can happen? Well, people who you think are terrible, reprehensible, and corrupt maybe their supporters begin to realize that they're terrible, reprehensible, and corrupt. And all of a sudden, what seemed like a monolith that would never change starts to fracture. Where it's going, nobody knows, but we can't assume that it isn't going to turn out well. So I have given you guys a bunch of examples. I mean, I could go on. I could go on about my own life. Okay, I'm going to give you an example from my own life. Okay. When I was, let me see, this was 1978. So I was 33 years old. I met a man who was an alcoholic, and he was a kind of a low bottom drunk. And it was sad. He was a very good person, but he was deeply in his addiction. So I called up AA, which was the thing to do, right? And say, what am I going to do to help my husband? Well, he wasn't a husband yet, but my boyfriend stopped drinking. And they told me go to Al-Anon for the families of alcoholics. And I thought I was going to go in and they were going to tell me how to get him to stop drinking. Well, that was first surprise was a bad surprise, which was they were not going to tell me how to get him to stop drinking, that there really wasn't anything much that I could do about that. But they did say, well, you can work on yourself and your own program. So there was first a bad surprise and then there was a good surprise. Now, let me tell you about that little surprise. I sat there and I looked at these other women. Of course, it was all women at that time who were putting up with these difficult alcoholic husbands. Not to say there aren't alcoholic women, don't misunderstand. So, anyway, I something struck me about this meeting that these women were in better shape than I was. They were more serene, they were more calm. And I thought, I wonder what there is to this. And I had been a social activist, a leftist, a Marxist, and so on, an atheist. And this was a spiritual program, not religious, but spiritual. And from that day on, my life changed completely because all of a sudden I started receiving spiritual guidance. I mean, what kind of a shock would that be? You know, I'm hearing voices in my head that are telling me what to do, led me to become a spiritual teacher, an intuitively guided counselor, and changed the course of my life. Now, if I had not met that alcoholic man who sadly he got sober and for 11 years and then he went out again and it was bad and that was the end of our marriage. But out of that experience, there was this miraculous change in my life. So, what I'm saying is, don't give up hope, guys. No matter what you're feeling bad, whether you're feeling bad about yourself or you're feeling bad about society or you're feeling bad about your health, I mean, you just never know when something is going to happen that is going to bring you something that you don't have. So, on that note, I am going to introduce my guests. Tonight we have friends Lizzie Treehart. Oh, wrong setting. Okay, Lizzie Treehart,
Hey,
yay.
hello.
And now we have James Maynard.
Hello, hello.
And finally, last but not least, we have Todd Benton. And by the way, I just want to tell you that sometime in the past we had another friend on the show, Amy, but it's just not working for her at this time, and so that's why she isn't on the show anymore. It's nothing negative about us or the show or you guys. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that, and here we go. So, uh, does anybody have any experiences that they can share where they have a surprise about what's going to happen? And it's a good one. James.
Yeah, some years ago, I had broken up with my wife at that time, and I was looking for a spiritual mate, a spiritual partner. And I would go on these online services like Conscious Singles, Spiritual Singles, and I would call up and talk to these different women. And so one of the women said, "Oh, I'm spiritual, but I don't want to work on myself anymore. I've done all that. I just want to hang out. Says, "No, that's spiritual." Another one, another one says, "Oh well, I like to meditate sometimes. But I'm spiritual." But so I was not doing very well. And then I connected with this woman, Beth Green. Oh my God, is she spiritual or what? In spades. I had no idea that if somebody out there like you I could meet and hook up with. So that's my biggest example right now.
Oh, that's great. That is great. And it didn't look that promising at first, did it?
No, not at first. Not at first.
But it has turned into a 14 and a half year ordeal or relationship or walk in the park. Yes, I love it. Thank you. Thank you. Uh, I have to say that when I saw James' ad, it seemed like we had so much in common. It was unbelievable. And I mean, I had been trying it for years to meet somebody. And, I mean, I was so intimidating, and I don't know why, because I'm the sweetest little thing you've ever met. But a lot of men found me intimidating, which I am sorry for. In fact, I had one who drove all the way to my house, and I lived out in the country. Drove 45 minutes, sat in front of the door at the parking at my house for maybe 25 minutes, turned around and left. So, I was so glad to meet James, and I heard his voice on his answer machine, and I said, "That's it. That's it. That's the guy." And that is the absolute truth. I told him that. I said, "That's the voice I've been waiting for all these years," and I was in my mid 60s. So, yeah, just never know, do you? Yeah,
I
never know. Yes, Toddles.
I'll go next. I have a very similar story.
You do.
Yes, because the same happened for me. I was 36 years old. I had been dating, but like nothing with just wasn't, like I don't connect to this person. I mean, we were fine together and people were like, "Oh, you should guys should get married." I'm like, "No, no, 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 no." You know how you don't just feel like you're totally in it. You're just like,
Yeah,
"Okay, this is the practice relationship for when I
right.
meet the real person." So I didn't want to be in a practice relationship. And it's funny because I was in a class at the time called the Wisdom Course, and I had to make up my weekend somewhere else because I had been at the wedding with my current girlfriend for the weekend that I was supposed to do in LA. So I went to San Diego and I met Christine. And it's so funny
By
because
accident.
by accident, yeah, I was sitting next to her in the class and I just kept looking at her and smiling at her. And she was looking and smiling at me. And we danced together because they had a social event like where just try and relax and meet people and be yourself. And so I did, and I danced with her. And then I wrote to her via email and said, "Hey, it's your Saturday Night Fever dance partner." And we corresponded via email. And I broke up with my girlfriend without ever even like seeing her again. We did end up seeing each other because we were in different cities, but I knew just from the communication and the conversations we were having. So I've been married with Christine for coming up on 25 years this year.
Oh my God.
And it's I'd say the best thing that's ever happened to me in terms of, we're all looking for love and the connection. And, we have that kind of idea of what we think love could be. And it's not that it's been a cakewalk. I mean, our first session with you was about like, "Hey, Christine, why are you ambivalent about Todd?" So that was pretty hard to hear, but we got through it. I
Me
thought,
as
"Oh,
the
she's
counselor,
totally into me. Yeah, we love each other."
right?
Oh, I guess not. But through all of it, we've gotten through that, and there's really a strong bond and communication, connection, and love. So yeah, so it can happen for people. I mean, how old were you guys when you got
I said
together?
I was about 65 or 66 when I met James.
Yeah, so it's never
Oh
too
yeah,
late.
66. Yeah, he was
Fighting for love.
still doing it.
Yeah.
So that's great. That's another great. So now it doesn't all have to be about love, because like I gave other kinds of examples of things that are serendipitous that can all of a sudden change your life. And, every time I pick up and I look at the news, I'm thinking, okay, that's awful. That's awful. That's awful. That's awful. But I'm still looking. And then I said, ooh, that's promising. Maybe that's not so bad. So
I do
because
have another story if you want to hear one, but after
let's have
Lizzie.
another one of a different type, right?
Yes, yes. Go.
Go for
Let's
it,
let.
Todd.
Okay. Well, the other one is with my current career, and that was influenced by you also. Like I was working in training in corporations during the last, major downturn in 2008, and they all pulled out their in-house training their external training with contractors in-house, and I was like, oh crap, what am I going to do? And I became a website designer. And it was much more fitting for who I am. And I never even had thought of it before, and but I just started working with it. And I had done one website for a friend of mine, and then I started with a website for a client at the time who was leaving the Adobe company, and she started her own coaching business. And that was my first paid client, and I've been doing it ever since, and I love it. And I'm great at it. It's a natural for me expressing my artistic ability and my technical skills. So
Yeah.
it's a really nice match.
Yeah. And that would not have happened if you had not had the serendipity of something bad happening.
Right. Exactly.
It's not always something bad happens before something good happens, but the truth is that something bad seems to be happening every 3 seconds. So it's hard not to have something bad happening before something good. But no, I know it's that's a lovely story. That's a lovely story. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. Do we have
Yeah.
another? Yes.
So one that I could think of, I was working in a nursing home, and had thought about getting out of that setting, maybe opening a business, doing, I'm a physical therapist slash holistic healer, but I never could really get myself to do it. Well, when I was working there, an incident happened with one of the patients, and I won't go into those details, but basically my employer supported me, but the nursing home that we had the contract with did not support me.
Mm-hmm.
So I was banned from working there because of
Banned.
this
Banned
accident.
like one of these books that talks
Yes.
about DEI, right?
Yep. And my employer supported me. They tried to find me work, but I was driving like an hour and a half one way to find a nursing home I could work at. And census was low. There wasn't enough patients in the nursing home that needed physical therapy. So I ended up getting laid off.
Mm-hmm.
And, it felt really horrible at the time. So I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to open my own business. And where I was working with you at the time and, got some things going and was knocking on doors and found a job at a wellness center. And that got me back into the arena where I can use these gifts that I have.
Yeah.
And, it was horrible at the time, but, now I'm grateful that happened. And there's other things that happened along in my career that, seemed pretty heavy at the time, but
yeah, well, something very similar to that happened to you very recently, that you didn't get a promotion that you wanted, right?
Yes, right now, my current job, yes. I inquired about a lead position or a manager position, and they gave it to somebody who is a brand new grad, and I was upset, but I'm very grateful because out of the blue, I get a call from another clinic owner that offered
Out
me
of the
something.
blue. Do you
Out
get
of the
this,
blue.
guys? Out of the blue. She gets a call.
Out of the blue. Yes. So, yeah, that has offered me something better, and I start that new job on Monday. So,
Yay! Now, I hope that people out there who are watching, if you're on my public Facebook page or on YouTube, you can put in something in the live chat on YouTube or the regular comment on Facebook. If you have a story like this of something that very unexpected, and I gave the example of the Pope because there are things that are really not specifically in our lives, also that can happen. Um, Finally, they found a vaccine for polio. They worked on it for years. You know, when I was growing up in the Stone Age, there was no vaccine for polio. And I mean, when I was in school, everybody was afraid of polio. It was a terrible scourge. And finally, all of a sudden, there was a vaccine, and then later on, there was another vaccine, and other people had worked on it, and there it was. And one thing that I never had to worry about for the rest of my life was that I was going to get polio.
Yeah.
So, of course, there's a lot of negative things happening. We all know that. But I love this. I want someone to come up with something else that you feel positive about that isn't directly in your life. Like I gave some
Oh.
examples, right? Can you think of something that's surprising, that's unexpected, like peace in the Middle East? No, not yet. But you know, something that you don't expect that is happening. Okay, you got something, Liz?
Well, yeah, as far as because of our current administration, there is more community happening. People are coming together that I see happening. So I don't think that would have happened if this administration wasn't in office.
That's right. And that is unexpected
Yes.
because we have very narrow minds. Oh, and look, you found the perfect apartment. You didn't expect that, right?
Yes.
You did.
Yes.
You know, you expect, you say, oh no, gee, what am I going to have to give up? I need something that might be, you know, close to work and that we can do this. You know.
Well, and also that so because of COVID,
Yes.
we were, you know, in our home in Oregon, in the house, you know, it was like kind of like not lockdown, but, you know, everybody stayed home. Well, we ended up getting really sick and finding out the house was really sick. So because of being in the house all the time, we ended up getting information that we needed to know that, okay, we need to not live here anymore. So we moved, and then ended up situations came up that we came down here to California for a visit and found out, boy, we're both really better physically. It's like, oh God, we're going to move to the most expensive city in the nation. How are we going to do this? But yeah, I found a job, found this beautiful, cute little apartment that fits all of our needs. And yeah.
And it all seemed impossible.
It seemed
It
impossible.
really seemed impossible.
Mm-hmm.
I love that story. And so, are we getting it? We don't know what's possible and what's impossible. And while you guys are thinking about me, oh,
I have
John
more.
has
I
one?
have
Okay,
at least two more.
Okay.
okay.
James, do you are you feeling left out? I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay. All right, cool. Well, there's two things. One, this thought came to me as I was sharing my last story. I expect this to happen. That's kind of my like orientation in life. So I think that is important. Like I'm not upset if it doesn't happen, but I do have the expectation that these kinds of positive things are going to happen. I don't know. That's my outlook in life. So it helps me when those things do happen. I seem to not miss them. The other thing I was thinking about on a more broader scale that isn't directly touching me, though it is affecting me because I am aging, is the knowledge we have about Alzheimer's and dementia, and the education and the stand that some doctors are taking outside of the traditional medical model. They're not saying that drugs alone are going to do it. You know, there are doctors that are saying eating sugar is the death of your brain. Do not do that. And also looking at the whole combination of factors that play into dementia. Hormones, it's not just one thing, and they're not going to solve it with just one thing. So I see that as a very positive development because it's realistic about people being able to reverse dementia. And, you know, so that to me is a very positive thing that some medical professionals that have been in the traditional training model have broken outside of that and said, no, this is not the way it's going to be solved.
Right. That's an extremely good example, Todd, because that's something that you did not create. And you
Exactly.
couldn't even have expected that.
Right.
It's just that it happened and you got the benefit. And I see a hand from the James.
Yes, I'll follow on from that. Regarding the topic of dementia, my own father died of Alzheimer's dementia, and it appears that I have the Alzheimer's gene. And yet, when I discovered that this particular doctor that was one of the doctors that Todd was referring to, I jumped on his protocol and have been working it thoroughly for years, and I've reversed the dementia that I was having. And so, and then other tools and resources came along. You wound up channeling music that had an incredible impact on my psyche, to where I've literally reversed the dementia that I was experiencing at that time, and it showed up in my scores on brain testing. So that I never expected that to happen. So that was pretty amazing. And,
Yeah, you just never know.
yeah.
By the way, if anyone is interested in that music, I can't guarantee that it's going to impact you, but we have in the description of this show a link to something called healingartsnetwork.org. And all my books, I have a lot of books that are very helpful, and blogs and videos and music is all on that for free. And you can listen, I don't know if I have 10, 12 hours of music that helped heal James' brain. So it's not like it went away completely, but it just started to reverse the decline. And we've been very blessed. We're very blessed in many ways. And so I love that. I would like to ask you, audience, right now, while you're thinking, if you have anything to offer and share, because I know there's a bunch of you watching, to please love or like this show on Facebook or give it a thumbs up on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the notification bell so that you'll be notified when we're on. And also that impresses YouTube. And you can follow us on Facebook. We've been picking up followers and subscribers, and we really appreciate it. And please pass this show on to your friends. And you can put your comments in after the show, because I will respond to you in writing when the show is over. And the reason that I ask you particularly to do this with this show is a lot of people are extremely distraught. I feel that way a lot myself. I have major health problems. We have a lot of worries. There's our society. I'm concerned. And yet, I don't want to give in to all that negativity and not remember that miracles happen. And of course, they have good explanations. You know what I mean? They don't all have to have been dropped by fairy dust, but they do happen. And I don't care if it's fairy dust or it's science or what it is, or it's intuition, or it's just good luck. We need some hope. And I hope that we have fed your hope tonight. So pass this show on to all of your friends, and come back next Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time for Lighting the Way with Beth Green and Friends. And join us again live, which is so great. And of course, you can always, watch later, and watch on either YouTube or Facebook. And on Thursday nights, this is Wednesday, Thursdays at 7 p.m., we have Magical Improvs with the Kindred Spirits Band, where James and I play totally improvised music every Thursday night. And we just follow spirit and let it take us wherever it wants to go. So, thanks again for joining us, and thanks for all the encouragement that we get from our audience, which is so great, and for the good vibes that we feel tonight. We need it. Mwah! So let me do the out thing. Wait a minute. The music is supposed to come on now. Okay. Take it away, Beth.